Stephen McDonald,
What's up,
what is happening, brother?
dude? I'm winding down, ready to not write music for a couple weeks. Hopefully, we'll
Oh,
see.
wow.
We'll see.
That's what's
That's
up.
always a hopefully.
Okay, so I pulled this, my listeners already know I pulled this question out at some point, but I guess I want to start with gratitude. What's coming into mind that you're grateful for right now?
Oh, I mean, I know the easy one is my family, my wife and daughter. Um, that's kind of I guess that's the default answer for most people. Um, as far as like relevance here, just um, being able to do what I do and whether that and whether it's not always the most fun, but it's a cool field to be in, and I'm glad I get to write music. I'm glad I get to work from home where my
Fuck yeah.
family is, um, and I'm glad I get to meet a lot of people. I've made so many friends in this industry. It's one of the things I like most about it is the kind of the composers, and publishers, little networks that form and support groups, so to speak. It's I'm thankful for all of that, really.
100%. Before I feel like before we get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit about like Stephen McDonald, like how you grew up? You're in Oklahoma right now, and yeah, how you came to be who you are today. And I feel like yes, a daughter and a wife that you are. A loving person too is a great motivator and a great thing to be thankful for. So I'd love to know your trajectory and how you've come to be where you are today.
Okay, yeah. So like you said, I'm in Oklahoma. Um, grew up here, went to public school here. I'm in a suburb, and I don't know. A lot of people probably don't know. Like out here in the Midwest, United States, marching band is huge. Just in general, like high school, middle school band is they're big and pretty well funded and very important and popular. And well, being in band doesn't make you popular. You probably know that. So I just as far as like music stuff, I started in like fifth grade band. I played clarinet, and then into high school some bass clarinet as well. And I always really liked marching band because it was kind of the fun, more showy, crowd pleasing stuff. So I first kind of started getting into wanting to write music for marching bands and stuff, and that was in like late high school when I started to get into the idea of writing music. One day I met with a really cool young guest composer we had at our school, and he kind of showed me the whole DAWs and virtual instruments thing. And so from there, I just started making my own music like crazy, hugely inspired by video games. Let me see right here. I've got all my video game, like the the main theme from Halo tattooed on my the music staff on my wrist. So I would just write music, put it on YouTube and stuff, and super inspired. I would put I'd do things like whenever Halo 5 was about to come out, I was like, oh, Halo 5 fan made, inspired soundtrack, and I would write stuff and put pictures of Master Chief on the YouTube video and stuff. And I came to get a decent little following and some viewers there doing that just for fun. And then one day, kind of out of the blue, someone that worked with the music library, they were a small music library that was mostly run by pop and hip hop producers, and they were just then starting to get deals with shows in like Discovery Channel and History Channel, stuff that used more orchestral and the cinematic film score esque music. And so they were needing more people to kind of fill out that side of their library. And the guy that approached me there, I still work with him daily. He kind of mentored me. He taught me what the industry was and how to get into there. Uh, from there, I kind of made my own connections. So that was about 2014 that I started. Now it's December 2023, so I'm coming. I'm just clear of 9 years doing this now. And in those years, I've worked a lot with that guy in that library, and then just kind of made my own connections. Submitting and networking, and I've worked for probably like 30 or 40 libraries total, but like actively, like ongoing, I probably work with, I'd say, like three or four that really stuck and that I'm working with on a regular basis. So that was my trajectory to get here. Along the way, like I went to college, decided not to major in music because I majoring in music is usually pretty performance based, and clarinet's cool, but I don't really like doing like I don't have a passion for performance. I have a passion for writing and telling the story. So I didn't want to have to be doing auditions and concerts and all that stuff in college. So I majored in film. Um, I thinking that would somehow be more employable, but I'm in Oklahoma. I don't think it really was. I got some my first like right out of college I managed to get some work in video and media, like graphic design and video production stuff. That was my day job until I dropped the day job in like early 2018, uh, where I had just took music full time from there, and I've been doing it since. And then during college, is where I met my wife. Shortly before I dropped the day job, we had my daughter, who's 6 now. So that was a big motivating factor. I remember my wife telling me she's pregnant, and I remember instantly pulling out my phone and checking my bank account to be like, "Oh man, can I do this? Can we do? Can we do this? Is the music thing going to work?" And so far, it has. So there's that gratefulness we talked about earlier. I've lost you there. You muted.
My dog was barking outside,
Okay,
so
it's
I
all
had
right.
to mute it on Zencaster. But um, technical errors. I'm not gonna edit this shit out. Let's just
Just
roll
keep
with
it
it.
raw.
So you've been doing it full time uh since 2018. What does that
Mhm.
mean, full time?
So that's what I count as when I dropped the day job entirely. So right, so I started doing this end of 2014. It was like January 2016 that I got my first royalty check. It was like $200. I was like, oh god, that's not enough, but it was it was motivating enough for me to. I hated the day job and I wanted
Mm,
out of it, so I was like, okay, my wife is working right now. I'm just gonna quit this day job and go to a part time job. So I managed to find like a 20-hour a week or so part time job and did that for 2 years while continuing to write lots and lots of music. And then so I was yeah when I got my September 2017 BMI check, I gave my boss basically a 3 months notice, so that the next royalty check, the day I got my next royalty check, was my last day of that job, and that was whenever I felt somewhat comfortable and that it was going to stay consistent enough for me to lose that paycheck. And at that point, my wife was working full time still, so there was some there was some steady money coming
mm.
into our household. Besides
So
that,
I'm interested is in 2017, how many tracks do you have in your catalog by then?
oh, let's see. Let me
Let's go
I'm literally pulling up a calculator. So okay, so when I started doing the library thing, I think what I considered a successful week was about 5 tracks a week is what I aimed for, and it sounds like a lot, and it is, but like one of the things you have to realize is like in reality, there are libraries that deal a lot like directly with American reality TV. Like that's their whole thing is U.S. reality shows on cable and network and stuff like that. They aren't usually like big international. They don't usually have sub publishing. Some of them do, some of them don't. Um, that world, they need a lot of music and they request a lot of it very fast. And they're shorter tracks, usually like a minute and a half is pretty normal for those tracks. When I'm going for like a big album for Warner Chapel or something like that, I go for 2 minutes plus to for those tracks. But yeah, writing like 5 of those instrumental background tracks a week. So let's see, I don't know, let's just so that was 3 years. So
Yeah,
five times 52,
sounds like
52,
about around 750 tracks,
yeah, yeah. So
775.
yeah, so I was approaching 1,000 and about to
Wow.
get there, and yeah, and I think by now I'm probably approaching 3,000. I don't know.
Wow.
I'd have to do
Wow.
some. It's a lot. Yeah,
It's
it's
amazing, man. I'm very inspired, and I just dropped an episode with Jason Rudd. I don't know why Justin and Jason always gets and it replaces each other in my
Mhm.
head. In my head,
I can see why.
Jason Rudd from Level 77, and he was speaking to. I mean, man, like I love the book that by Dan Graham that
Yep.
and that basically recommends to do a Q a week, and lays out that in around 7 to 8 years, if I'm getting the numbers right, you'll make a full time job from music if you do it with the right publishers, of course. But I feel like as I'm approaching this year, and I did make around probably 50 to 70 Qs this year. That like it's not I'm not nearly in the rhythm that I can provide that I can be in order to provide myself a full-time living from these royalty checks like you've been cranking and doing. I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah. It's kind of tricky because, like, to me, I kind of have there are different areas of production music that I do, and like the reality TV thing is very much its own league, different. So if I'm doing when I'm doing albums for like the bigger libraries, or the ones that have more international representation, the ones that aren't just in that little, like, in the reality TV trenches, I do put more time into those. I mean, I always, whenever I talk about this, I always try to make sure I don't sound like I'm not giving the reality TV stuff enough attention. They I try to make, I obviously am trying to make those tracks good. It's just the expectation there is usually they need more. Like, in that area, they're asking for more, and you get briefs a lot.
Because
If you're with
that's
the
what
busy
their
libraries.
license their blankets look like. That's what their blankets look like.
Yep,
Like
and
they're getting paid less for more. So I mean, like it makes sense.
yeah, and in general, like, what's important with those reality TV, like, since they're being shopped directly to like editors that are working on the shows, the most important thing is that they fulfill the brief, like the mood, the tone.
Yeah.
They have, the edit points. That's the basic stuff. The kind of the reality TV rules. Um, and they don't necessarily have to be like crazy, insane, like top notch, 40-hour mixes that that will just blow speakers away. Because, like, to be real, they're going to be like, half the time they're going to be in mono, buried under dialogue. That you know and again, I don't want to give the impression that I, like, don't try on those, but it's because of, like, working so much in that field is the reason my output is so high, the numbers are so high.
Hmm.
If I was doing just nothing but albums for Warner Chappell or Universal or something like that, I'm sure that number for me would be much lower, because I think those, like, for the longevity you want, and for how many countries they go to and stuff, I feel like the standard is higher, and that it's less about getting as many tracks out and more about making sure they're, really top notch competitive. And, like, I've done quite a bit of trailer music too. That was where I spent a lot of time, like, getting better, was improving, because doing trailer music, I had to be competitive with the Mark Petries and Phil Lobers of the world.
Oh my god, these guys are monsters. Yeah.
So that I mean, that's my perspective on it. Is like, I think I don't think I'm a really really good composer, but I think I'm really good at finishing tracks and knowing when they're done and knowing when it's appropriate to move on. I think that's so, like, and that skill, I think, is particularly useful in the reality TV world, where you need a lot.
In the world in general, I feel like that's it's interesting. Yeah, the last podcasts have been about being a finisher. A lot of them have been about being a finisher. And I was talking to again, I'm shouting him out because he's dope, Gallo, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking about the challenge that I took on, which was a rap a day, like to make a rap video a day for 100 days. And what it made me was not only a better uh, rapper and producer, it also made me a way more of a finisher. Like as
Mhm.
opposed to before, where I would like marinate on a track for a year before I wouldn't even release it, kind of thing. And that was kind of a thing. And then like having that daily challenge of doing something and regardless of if it sounds the best that I've ever done, or if it sounds shitty as hell, I'm moving with this. I'm moving forward. I'm keeping on pushing this, and I feel like I'm doing stuff for reality. And I guess the lower tier, maybe, you could one could call it lower tier, but just like more background and more specific, more niche, can actually make you a way better oiled machine for the bigger ones, I feel like.
And I think I think that makes sense too, because like I started, all I was doing was the reality TV stuff, and I'm gonna say I'm gonna say not lower tier, but I think it is kind of apples and oranges. Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's still making music, making library music, but um, the skill, I think the skill set is a little different. Like, I think a lot of people that do really high quality albums for big libraries probably couldn't or would hate doing the reality TV thing, just because it's a different skill and a different, like, it's incredibly mentally draining. Like, even if I'm not spending a ton of hours on a track, there's still a lot of decisions being made there, a lot of creative energy being used. So that's the hard part to me, is just like the long term, like, okay, I'm writing my 1000th orchestral tension or orchestral drama track, you know, like how could I possibly write another one? Whereas, you know, with the higher quality, the higher tier stuff and trailers and such here, it's more of like, how can I make something like groundbreaking, or, you know, something something attention grabbing and weird. It's
Right,
different skills.
but that, I mean, like, that as well has its price, you know, like, like, I always take the custom work thing, where some people like narrow down and focus on custom work, and then a lot of their gigs don't get accepted, and then they don't get to pay their bills, and, you know, like, it's also a very frustrating cycle to be a part of. That's why I feel like for me, the only way to keep longevity in this, my strategy, and the only way to keep longevity for myself, is to be able to balance the two, you know, like, to juggle between one thing and the other. Because, like, man, I'm doing an album for one of the big three right now, and I'm so well polished right now for this. Like, I'm so fresh, my ear is so fresh, because I haven't they've asked me for a style that I haven't done in a while, and I'm like, let's go. 10 tracks in 10 days, you know, like, and it comes out of me like nothing. And the reason I'm flexing right now is because it is just, I feel like, the ability to rest and digest, so to speak. Like, just like when you go to the gym, you can't go to the gym every day and expect your muscles to get blown up. You need to rest. You need to have these periods of unwinding.
Yeah, and that and that's the thing that is like, I was like, when you asked what's up, and I said ready to not write music for 2 weeks. I it has been busy, so I kind of like, over the summer I slow down a little bit. But like during the school year, when my daughter's at school all day and I have 7 to 8 hours a day of like empty house where I can really work, I go pretty hard. I go really hard, and then, and I think I've done. I don't know how I've done. I mean, I've been doing like daily reality TV briefs, and then alongside that, I've done like 4 albums since September, I think. I'm like just wrapped up the last one now, and I'm just like, oh, I want to rest, but then anxiety, you know, fear of like losing relationships or losing contacts by being inactive also takes over a bit. Where that's why it's always, I'm going to try to rest and
Mm,
try to not write music,
yeah, I
but
mean,
we'll see.
I feel like that's also important. I've been experiencing a lot of gut issues lately, gut challenges, I would say, not issues, because I really feel like the body gives us cues, right? Like, the body gives us little signs, like, hey, I'm not good right now, you know, like,
Mhm.
I'm experiencing this, and I tend to not listen to my body. Like, I tend to take it too much to the edge, and I feel like with screens, like, with the position we're in, it is
Mhm.
so easy to not see anything that is happening inside and in our brain, in our body, because it's so desensitizing, right? Like we're looking at a screen. We're basically, like, if you think about it, like the ideal state is wide, right? Like the eyes need to look wide. That's why a lot of people have glasses, because they're so focused on one thing. And it really, it creates like this, the facial muscles aren't doing what they need to be doing, which is basically look wide and see if there's risk or something, like, or and um what I'm speaking to is that it is so easy for people like me and you to forget about all that kind of stuff, to not go outside, to not take a break, to not take the weekend off. And then, like, man, I've been burnt out a few times, like bad burnt out.
Mhm.
And every time I have gut issues, I have to remind myself, okay, wait, what can we restart here? What's the it's like in my Mac, a lot of the times when sometimes actually like the DAW doesn't work or something like that, like especially when rendering like heavy projects, and I'm like, okay, I need to uh, um I need to disconnect all the cables. I need to shut off the computer. I need to pull it back up, because there's actually like a thing where when you pull all the USBs out of your computer, it actually can basically rest and digest for a few minutes, and then you put it back together, and it's like new.
Mhm.
And I feel like it is a direct analogy to how we should be managing our energy, right? Like, uh, um juggling between projects, reminding ourselves to be mindful of the body and the soul, and things that need to be nourished as well. Because if not, then I mean, like, I'm not doing this so at 60 I'll be obese and overweight and have beers in my home. I'm not doing this for that, and I know my listeners aren't doing this for that.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
long rant.
I no, but it's very relevant for us. I mean, like we're freelancers. Like all pretty much everyone doing this are freelancers. There's no, nothing's guaranteed, and uh, I am like I always say, like probably the thing I'm worst at is relaxing. Like I'm terrible at pumping the brakes, because some people ask me like what motivates you. A lot of times I'm like anxiety, fear
Mm,
of fear of losing it all and having no income and no, like failing my family and all that stuff. So I'll, that's what makes it hard for me to pump the brakes and just, sit back. And I know it's bad for me, and I know it's bad for my health. I keep myself pretty disciplined, like as far as like physical activity. So I don't think I suffer in that way, but it's all up here where I
yeah.
work incredibly hard. And like I think that's part of having anxiety. It is a double-edged sword, like
Mm,
um because if you can channel it into being really productive and proactive, and you know what I mean, like you can, like I wouldn't want all of my anxiety to suddenly go away, because I would feel like that would change my personality to its core, where I would not, my work ethic would probably suffer. um maybe I'd be able to take a vacation and enjoy it, but
mm,
also I would be worried that I would just kind of be like, ah, I don't need to keep this up. But I know I do. There's always that fear of like, if I were to take a sabbatical or something, the industry would not stop. The industry would keep going without me. And there's always that fear of like, oh, are people gonna, are my publishers gonna forget about me, or are our clients gonna move on to someone else that's not me? So, you know, that's something
but that's
I
the
think
power
about
of
and
that's
struggle with
that's
a
still
lot.
the power of relationships. I feel like that's where the rubber meets the road.
Hmm.
That's what I feel like, like, that's why helicopter parenting is so harmful for children. And I'm bringing all sorts of analogy, because that's what you're bringing. That's that, as we said, like, this conversation is free flowing, and these are analogies. Like, I had to, as a person, I had to um, get rid of my tendency to helicopter parent my dog, because she's my dog is literally my one best friend in the world.
Mhm.
and I think people can resonate with that as well. But I mean, helicopter parenting was something that I've experienced, and what helicopter parenting essentially is just too much anxiety put into raising a child, right? And
Mhm.
then the child absorbs all this anxiety and becomes that, and becomes a product of that. And I think that's not fair as a parent to do, like, and to not do it, you have to be mindful, right? And
Mhm.
to be mindful, you have to manage that anxiety, right? And that's what humans have been doing for years. Like, I mean, like, when you see a lion in the that's stalking you, you're not going to be happy, right? You're going to have a level of anxiety. But the thing is that people keep up this anxiety. A lot of people in the modern world are keeping this anxiety even when they're resting and digesting. They're in their
Mhm.
cave. They're in their comfort. They're spending time with their loved ones, and they're keeping that anxiety. And that's what fucks shit up.
Yeah.
And that's what creates unhappiness. And that's why I feel like it's more important for me, really, to promote like things that can enhance the human machine than it is to promote plugins, because I feel like the human machine is the one and only thing that keeps us. I don't think, I know it's the one and only thing that keeps us floating in hard times, in cold times, in fearful times. Like, if we are in constant anxiety, it's unmanageable. I mean, and again, there are levels to it, and there's management to it, and yes, I'm not going to tell somebody with high anxiety who's like on oxy all day long to chill out, right? But like, there are ways to put ourselves um in front of this, as opposed to putting that anxiety and then blaming everything on it, which is not something I'm saying you're doing. I'm just saying that that a lot of people who don't get a lot of shit done because they end up procrastinating. That's what happens. They put the anxiety in front of themselves and not ask themselves, what do I want? They ask themselves subconsciously, what does the anxiety want? And and for me, like, as of late, I've been starting to shut everything off at 8 p.m. I'm shutting everything off. Whatever I'm doing, boom, off. Um, uh, um, I like to geek out, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, like Tim Ferriss, and like people who talk about stuff from a very scientific but also holistic standpoint. And I try to implement a lot of these things, like a lot of cold showers, a lot of exposure to these situations, which induce anxiety and try to calm within them, and then it helps me with my anxiety. So yeah, as of late, my hack to that, and I'm not sure like if parents can do it as good, but I'm sure there is a way to find a way to stop everything at a certain time, and and it's before sleep as well. So if you're finishing like your production at 10 p.m. and going to sleep at 10:30 p.m., it's gonna fuck up your sleep. So
Yes.
understanding that, and for me, 8 p.m. everything stops. At 10, I'm already like done. At 10, I'm already like eyes closed, uh, uh, um, and sleeping, getting ready for the next day. So that's been a really helpful thing for me.
Yeah, we do. So uh, the things I do, and it's funny you talk about helicopter parenting. I work from home, have one child, and oh man, that I am going to struggle with not helicopter parenting because I just love that little kid, and I'm always around, and she's always
Yes.
around. But so I think the thing that I do well, my what works for me, and what helps hold anxiety back is exercise. I mean, I'm sure that's the deal for a lot of people. Like for me, I do some form of exercise every day. I have a couple days a week. I go to a gym. You know the show American Ninja Warrior, or those shows, the obstacle course.
Oh yeah.
yeah, stuff like so. I do that stuff. Like I go to a gym that does the obstacle course fitness stuff, and that's super fun. I love that. That's
That's
amazing
amazing.
for my brain too. And
That's also
the
play. That's also
it is.
play.
It is adult playground, like
Yeah.
hanging on stuff, jumping, doing monkey bars,
Yeah.
doing little flips and whatnot. And
Yep.
I do that. The other days that I don't do that, I run. And the running is, I don't know how many times I'm like stressed, anxious. I don't even know why. I've been working like I'm gonna stop, and then like 3 miles later, the feeling that's left is mostly just like pride, like I
Mm,
did that, like I'm good, like that. It flushes out the brain really well. And we don't we don't shut down all of our screens, but yeah. So at night we stop, we make sure like around 7:30 or so we start, like Jade, my daughter, starts winding down for bed, and that's when my wife and I will we stop everything else we're doing and we go and just hang out together, like what,
mm,
and we watch TV, and we'll just watch stuff that makes us happy,
mm.
and then
That's
like,
lovely.
yeah, by 10:30 or so we're dead. And I do not I do not work in the evenings, like unless I have
Yeah.
to, and it happens. I get requests sometimes that are urgent. Something needs to be done now. But in general, I would much rather wake up at like 6 and like
Yeah.
run, run an errand, get some work done before my kid wakes up, and then have that early start. I try to get everything done as early as I can in the day before I goof off and attempt to relax the rest of the day. That's kind of my
There's also research that Andrew Huberman was alluding to in his podcast with Tim Ferriss, and Andrew Huberman is like a really highly regarded neuroscientist, and there are studies that he pointed to that show that high light after 11 p.m. can really hinder your sleep and your relaxation protocols, therefore your brain function. So
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, and I don't like to like preach that stuff too much to people, because I know some people are just night owls, and that's when they come alive at night, and I'm like, yeah, that's not me. I I die at night, and not that I don't enjoy it occasionally. It's a little treat occasionally, stay up late playing a video game or something when it's
yeah.
dark and the ambiance is nice. But
Mm.
in general, I do most of everything during daylight. I hate wasting daylight. I hate sleeping in. I don't like taking naps, because it's like, oh, I just wasted daylight. Even
I'm
if I'm not
exactly
going
like
outside.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'm
like winter, I
exactly
hate
like that.
winter because it's like, oh, it's dark at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Cool. But
That's the amazing thing about living in a tropical island, is that the earliest we get dark is like 7.
yeah,
So yeah,
I don't know
in Bali.
where, like, geographically Bali is.
It's right. It's between. It's close to Australia. It's close to
Okay.
Philippines. It's close to Vietnam, Thailand.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the main thing that keeps me here. Like when I lived in Denver and in places with seasons, it's amazing, man. Like it's so beautiful to see everything change. That being said, the time of year, these 4 months of the year where I feel miserable, are kind of not worth it for me. Like I'd love to spend maybe like a month of a winter somewhere, just like to fuck around or something like that. But like, uh, um, it's just and that's why I love a tropical island. It's because it keeps me awake when I need to be awake, kind of thing. Because it gets really hot during the day, and it doesn't get really cold during the night. But I feel like there's another thing that I mean, people who say they're night owls, I kind of like I tend to disagree with the fact that I'm a night owl. You're not a night owl. You're human, and humans like our basically our physiology is if you are without computers, without lights, without anything, you will go to sleep before 9 p.m. I'm positive about it. If you just like go to somewhere, to a cabin in the trees for 3 days, I guarantee you your rhythms will go back to being human. Saying I'm a night owl, uh, to me, of course, there are people who like being awake at night. It's silent. There's a lot of things that are cool about it. That being said, I'm a night owl, kind of takes the responsibility of taking care of our of my body. That's for me because I used to be a night owl, and I used to feel the toll it had on my brain. Um, and now I can comfortably say that I feel strongly about the fact that if you go to a cabin for 3 days, your whole rhythms will adjust, and you will immediately understand that calling yourself a night owl is probably it's just taking away from your responsibility and agency to actually understand your body.
Mhm. And there are
And
certainly a lot of like societal factors that play into making night owls out of people. I'm sure. And all I know for certain is daylight for me. I choose daylight.
yeah,
It's and I think I mostly always have. And like if the sun is up and I'm still in bed, it's like, what am I doing? Like, get,
yeah.
get up,
That's why
get
also
something
like
done.
that's why like we're getting into really interesting waters here. It's just like that's why you don't see people in the park doing cocaine like in the middle of the day, right? Because
I
it's
mean, in
just
Oklahoma, it's meth for no.
you okay, maybe that, yes, but no, like I mean like heavy stimulants like for mainstream society, for people who are like so-called not addicts, like normal people, like they would say, oh yeah, I can stay through the night, just give me a bump or two or something like that. But
Mhm,
that's actually what people say, like
mhm.
especially people from nightlife and people who are so-called night owls. So that's why I tend to disagree with that whole thing. That being said, like being awake at night is also something that humans needed ancestrally. Somebody needed to keep the fire going, if and things like that. So I understand from a necessity standpoint. I just think that people that say that it's a natural thing are missing a lot of facts on the journey. But anyway,
Yeah.
man, let's get back to the let's get back to where we're at, man. Like what's for you, like now that you're doing it full time and you're writing it, what are your goals? What are things that keep you up and keep you going these days?
So when I got into music, my goal was, I'll say, like my specific goal was like, I'm going to score a Halo game one day. That was that was kind of my driving thing, and it was, like, video games are my passion still. Like I once music became work and not really hobby anymore. Uh, Gaming took more of a hobby role. That's more of my relaxing thing I do. But I don't know, man. I think I've gotten really comfortable where I am, and that can cause. You could argue that that's like complacency, um, but at the same time, what I doing what I do now, the it's I'm enough of a, as you said, a well-oiled machine at it now, and the structure of production music, when you're not doing like constant trailer customs, is relaxed enough that you know I don't know, I don't really know any other parents who get to spend as much time with their kids like as myself and my wife do,
Hmm.
and that alone makes me think, like, why would I ever change anything? Like,
Mm,
I go, I still would love to, if the opportunity was to come along, I would probably, yeah, I would work on a game, I would do it, and I've had a couple opportunities come close but not quite
mm,
pan out, and I would love to do it. I would love to have that notch on my belt, so to speak. But I really don't actively pursue that stuff anymore, just because I think part of it is being spoiled on the whole concept of back end and residual income. I mean, like, there are so few other professions that generate residual income. Like, if I had a job, sure, I'd have health insurance. That'd be nice.
mm,
As a U.S. resident,
yeah,
that'll hit your U.S. listeners harder, for
yeah.
sure. but
Oh man.
uh, but the residual income and the ability to be passive when needed. I don't like to be, like I said, I don't like to be inactive. I don't like to not write music.
Yeah.
But if I had to, I could stop, and not really feel it. Um, so I mean, my goal is really to just get better, keep doing what I do for with more publishers, with cooler meet more cool people to work with, and I guess I'm not an ambitious person. Like I never it was never even my goal to get into this field at all. Like I guess, and like I said before, I kind of stumbled into it, fell into it by accident, and then just like seized it and took advantage. Uh, so beyond just continuing to do what I do, that's really it. Just be a family man, have a fulfilling life outside of music, and that's my main goal. Like work life balance. And even though I just talked about how bad I am at not working, I think I still have it a lot better than people in other professions, or people pursuing more active fields and more deadline driven
Yeah.
fields and professions.
Even
Um,
you know what, like arguably, even in even in label work, like it's so close to us, right? Like I mean, the labels we work with, they also have deadlines, they also have things they need to reach in order to keep going and things like that. So we are way closer to that than we want to think at times. And it's just really interesting how you're saying about the ambition part, because like, man, if I were to tell you, I like to say it to my older brother, because he has his own startup, which is has been pretty successful. And he kind of he talks to me at times, and he's like, man, I don't know, I'm like this, and I'm like, bro, if you were you 6 years ago, would you believe that you would have what you have right now? Would you call that not ambitious? You know what I mean? Like it's crazy to me. Like right now, the space that I'm in, the space that I'm building, I just got panels, and I'm gonna build like the ceiling for like for the studio. These are things that 10 years ago, when I sold my all my equipment so I can survive in New York, I didn't even think about, right? And now I'm thinking, huh, do I make my clouds here 20 centimeters wide, or 20 centimeters thick, or 15? Oh, I don't know. These are such hard decisions to make, kind of thing. Like that, these are the thoughts that actually go through my mind. So I feel like um, it's interesting to see how, like, just different standards create a feeling of, yeah, I'm not very ambitious, but yet if I would take you before Jade was born, you would be like, "Oh, if I knew this was my trajectory, oh my god," right?
yeah, yeah, and I mean, things blew up in a way I didn't expect. Like, to be honest, with the whole career. And like I was, I mean, like where I live in Oklahoma, like I was, I was like, well, I'll probably end up in some office job making 50 grand a year or something, and I'll be happy and fine. And things have escalated in a way I wasn't expecting. And it is, yeah, the perspective shift of thinking back 6 years is definitely helpful to the mindset. Because well, I don't consider myself ambitious in that, like, I don't sit back and like dream of these big grand goals. I think I'm ambitious in the way that I do like to achieve stuff. I like to get better and achieve stuff. And um, for me, that's just, I guess that achievement for me is being the reliable guy that people like to work with. And I think that's been the key of my career, is being that guy, being the that's why I think that's why I have a career, is because people have liked working, like you said about relationships being the key. Um, I think people like working with me, and I appreciate it. I'm extremely grateful for them. I try my best to be the the reliable on time guy, never cause any headaches, deliver everything ahead of time, always have the right file format. The things that make people's lives easier. And
Yeah,
I do like to work with people who I can tell express an interest beyond just, all right, I want this music. Thank you. Bye. you know,
yeah,
I like emails that open with, hey, how've you been? You been having a good summer? How's you, that I very much value that aspect of this business. And I think, I think there's a lot of it. There are a lot of good people, and I'm fortunate to have met a lot of them.
there's also a lot of people who don't realize it. Also in publishers, like I'm not shy to say it. I've experienced it
Mhm.
where people don't really care about how you feel, and it's okay, but it's very transactional. I mean, like there's a few labels which I've worked with, and I'm never gonna work with again because of that. And like not because of cruelty or like there was nothing wrong. That being said, like I need to feel comfortable when I work with you, kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
I want to be easy to work with for sure, but I also can't feel like I'm a means to an end.
Mhm.
And that's what you were alluding to. I feel like you worked with 30 publishers. You chose to keep working with like three, which is what essentially I feel like that's the kind of thing. That's the way you want it to be. You want to have a few, like you want to have your pool of places to work with, but like 3 to 5 in my head, 3 to 5 really good relationships with good publishers
Mhm.
can set you up for an amazing career in my perspective. And it all comes down to a relationship and how comfortable you feel talking to somebody, right?
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah. And that I had just an example just a few months ago. I wrote an album, was pitching it around. I got a response from a library. I was pretty excited that they responded, and then the whole thing ended up being so like just like, okay, here's our specs, deliver it whenever you can. I'm like, okay, delivered, and it was just like, okay, cool, we'll get back to you with a contract closer to release date. That could be a few months from now. Silence.
Yeah.
And like it's gonna. I'm not. I'm still. I'm rolling with it. I don't feel like they're doing any. They're not like trying to scam me or anything. Like I know they're legit, but it's just like, well, that left a bit to be desired as far
Yeah.
as networking and just feeling, like hopefully it'll come out and and it's a proven library with a good track record and stuff. But I left it feeling a bit like hello, did you notice me? I'm over
Yeah.
here.
Exactly, and that's that. I feel like that's also the importance of face to face, or even like talking in network, like talking on like this, like on video. It's just like to see and feel the presence of somebody. Yeah, we'll get to like maybe I'll come to Oklahoma and hang out with you next year. Like
Yeah.
and chill with Jade and play with Jade or something like that. But like it's the whole thing. I love the name, by the way. That's why I'm saying it again and again. Is I think it's a
It's a good
beautiful
one.
name.
We're pretty proud
Um,
of it.
but like that's Zigard. Actually, he's an amazing composer for a lot of games,
Mhm.
and he is like a next level human being. I recommend anyone to listen to both the podcasts I did with him, and he's gonna come on round 3 really really soon. But he speaks to exactly what we were kind of uh, um to to being able to get people on a call, right? Like to feel who you're speaking to. And there was lately a few times, like in the past 2 to 3 years, there have been label owners which were like, okay, let's get on a conversation. Sometimes they would have the whole team on a conversation with me, a composer, a single composer.
Mhm.
They would have the
Yes.
whole team come on, make time and come on a call with me. That means the world. When I saw
Yes.
that person in reality, I gave him a huge hug, and I was like, and it was so genuine, because regardless if this library has gotten me placement, the fact that they took the time to tell me what they think about my art and tell me what they want me to do with them and what vision they have, it makes a relationship. And that's
100%.
what I feel like. Yeah, maybe you're not people who are listening to this and are in the beginning of their journey, they're not going to get that in the beginning. But like once you become good enough, and once enough people want to work with you, people start to understand your value, and they start to create these conversations with you. So why not start it from you, kind of thing?
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And every time I like get in contact with a new publisher, I try to like not so subtly hint in one of my intro emails like, I'd love to get to know more about what you guys do and your clientele and stuff like that. If you wanted to hop on a Zoom call or a phone call at
Let's
some
do
point,
meth in the park.
yeah, yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's do it. Oklahoma networking, broad daylight.
Let's do networking Oklahoma style.
Yeah. Sometimes they blow past it and just move on with all business. Sometimes, I've had like I've been working with one of the big three as well. And like this was a pretty recent thing, like within the past year. And first thing we did was got on a Zoom call and just like got to know the owner and got like found out that the the representative of the company I was talking to, like used to live a couple hours away in Oklahoma City in Oklahoma, in a city nearby. I don't know, and I loved that. I was like, I
I know who you're
immediately feel
talking about
really
as
good
well.
about.
That's so cool. Yeah,
I
that's
immediately
super
felt good
cool.
about working
Yeah,
with this team. So yeah, it is incredibly valuable, and I will always try to find that relationship when possible. And those are the people who will get, those are the people who will end up with 1,000 tracks of mine in their library after a while.
yeah,
The
yeah.
ones who I just want to come back to.
Yeah, and I know, like, again, I know big composers who go back to these people just because of the good taste they've left, not necessarily because of the placements. And it's another thing. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe this is geared towards libraries. Like, the more people feel comfortable working for you and with you, the more they're likely to write more for you. A lot of people, because I think it's an interesting perspective to present, because a lot of the people present, what do you need to do in order for libraries to want to work with you? But I mean, like, once you get to a certain number in your catalog, you want to work with people who appreciate you.
Yes.
It's just like, you, after 100 tracks in your BMI, I feel like, I feel like one can be done with trying to prove themselves, right? Like, they need to start searching for these relationships, and for that more long haul game that you are in right now.
Yeah.
So I think we're about we're in our time, and I would like to ask you, do you have like any last piece of advice you'd like to give the composers at home listening to this, people who are looking to make their mark?
I think if I could boil it down to
Steven.
a couple of important bullet points, the things that I think work, at least for me,
Hmm.
are taking it seriously. It's a business, it's work, it's a service in exchange for currency. Like, and I'm not saying that doesn't mean there's no art to it. There's no craft. I view it as craft, and it's something you have to take seriously and know that like there will be demands that you have to meet uh, to to excel, to get people to want to work with you more. And so do the work, put in the work. Don't like. I mean, everything worth doing takes time and blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. So don't be sad. Don't give up. Don't lose hope whenever it things take a while, because they will. Uh, and then the other thing is just be your genuine self. I think it's really obvious when someone is trying to network versus when someone is organically networking.
Yeah.
And there you'll see a lot of like stuff on YouTube or whatnot, giving you email templates to submit to publishers, or like telling you this is how you should talk to people if you want to be successful in sync. And I just kind of say, I mean, obviously there's a baseline of knowledge you need to have so you don't make a fool of yourself. But when it comes to presenting yourself to people, be you. Unless you is a
Mm,
total jerk, then maybe don't do that. But
wow. Big, 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 big. I can't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the fucking head, because um yeah, all these that's what my homie, who will stay nameless, was talking to me about, like, courses and why they suck. Uh basically. He's like, yeah, man, there's no cookie cutter way. And I've taken a few courses that tell you how to write and stuff like that. And I feel like the better way to present it is what not to write. a few
Mhm.
things that you don't need to write. Of course, yes, like, and it's been on the podcast, so we don't need to repeat that. But like, and if I were to do a course, I would say like, yeah, don't send WAV files. Don't. There's a few things that
Yeah.
you don't share your whole life story. You don't leave. Yeah, again, big files and long stories. You leave that out, and I feel like having that as your template, like a few things not to do, will make you more efficient in sending an email, because
Hmm.
it just comes across. It just comes across when there's a template. It comes across, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people find out more about you and what you do?
Well, I mean, as far as online presence, my website, it's just Stephen with a V, StephenMcDonaldMusic.com. There's, there's contact information there, and uh, music examples and stuff like that. My social media is mostly personal stuff, pictures of my kid and my dog and my family and stuff like that. But that's that. I would say a website. If there's anything else you were wanting to learn or hear, if you're just wanting to hear music, that's the best way there.
Sick. Man, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a good talk. That was fun.